Hi,
Welcome.
everybody.
Hello.
Welcome. Long time no see. Hi.
Yes. We
um,
are back.
we are back with a vengeance. It is episode 68. So we had a wonderful episode. Last episode went out this week. Great guests. Please give it a listen. We have a lot of great guests coming on the pod in the next couple of
We
weeks.
do.
So
I'm excited.
yay, stay tuned. Okay, so let's get into it. Um, Today we wanted to chat a little bit about negative mindset, how to regulate emotions so that you can still talk about them, you can still express them, but channel them.
Right. And I think the biggest thing we want to kind of put out there in this episode is there's been a lot of like questioning about healthy dynamics of like, I'm going to just deem it as like bitching and venting. Like, I
Hmm.
guess we can just say like sometimes we need that, right? But at what
Sure.
point is it too much for yourself and for the other, like for your other people in your life, your friends, your
Hmm.
partner, where
Yeah.
you're constantly like, when is it healthy to bitch and complain and when is it unhealthy to bitch and
Hmm.
complain? So when I
Yeah.
say that, Gabby, what do you think sticks out to you, and in what way would you frame it, in a healthy way versus an unhealthy way?
Yeah. When you say that, I immediately think of, well, I think people come into therapy expecting to be told, like, be positive all the time, right? If you have a negative mindset, just be positive. And that's not always helpful. I think it's important to validate that emotions have a role and they teach us things and we need to get them out, but they're also not someone else's responsibility. We have a responsibility to look inside and see what we're going through and why, and kind of determine when it's appropriate to share some stuff and when it may just be something we have to work on.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the hardest things is, again, I'm going to say this is different for different situations. I think the stereotypic one, which I brought up to you, is say you're like, you don't like your career, you don't like your job, and every day you want to get home and bitch
Yeah.
about it,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And it's like, I get that. I totally get where you're like, okay, like my day, I didn't like it. But at what point is it like every day I'm going to go home and tell my partner the same thing? Every day I'm going to spiral into this negative mindset instead of like, there has to, like, this is, I guess, how I would frame it. And so
Hmm.
I guess chime in how you would.
Yeah.
Like, there has to be some point of acceptance, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Bingo.
how do I, like, vent and bitch about something that's happening, but also, like, then I have to move into, like, "All right, I accept it. I accept that, like, this is usually
Hmm.
how my Tuesdays go.
Yep.
It's always gonna annoy me. It's always gonna be like, the emotional language is there, not just,
Yeah.
there's difference between negative and emotional too. Like, you can be emotional and just say, "Yeah, it's like Tuesday. I don't really vibe with Tuesdays. I don't like my Tuesdays, but I'm gonna accept
Hmm.
that, like, I know I'm frustrated. I know I'm annoyed, and how do I turn it off when I get home and just like, yeah, babe, it was, it was my usual Tuesday, but like, how was your day? Like, let's talk about something good so I can like fill my cup now."
Yeah.
Um, so that's the kind of the way I see it. And I know, like, for me, how I gauge it for myself personally, not saying this has to be for everybody, is like there are certain things where I check in where like, did my day really impact me where I know I need to talk about it? Right?
Yeah.
Like, did I see, or I'm just like in a moment of my life where too much is going on. And then I
Yeah.
went to work and something happened. So when my boyfriend is like, "Hey, how was work?" And I have that moment of, it didn't feel just like my every blah, or didn't just feel like, oh, I had a rough day. It was like,
Yeah.
you know what? Can I tell you about something that happened? Because like I don't feel
Right.
good about it. But
Yeah.
it's like an event that caused it to be different than just like, I didn't really like my day, if
Right.
that makes sense. But there's a
Yeah.
point of like acceptance that I think some people don't grapple with. And
Yeah.
then it's the same negative emotion and
Hmm.
negative mindset that
Right.
keeps in that spiral that you can't get
Yeah.
out of. And then it's just not fun to be around either.
Right. Yeah, I think a couple things stick out to me. I totally agree with you about some degree of acceptance. And I think people struggle a lot with acceptance because they think it means that they approve of what's happening,
Right.
right? You can accept that something sucks, like your day at work, without
Mhm.
being like, yay, that's great that my day sucked, right? I
Right.
approve. I want this all the time. That's not what it means. It means that you're putting a little space emotionally between fact and feeling. And those two things are separate. You can have a really shitty day. And every single day is a shitty day. But then, like you said, I have feelings about that, but maybe I only share them when it was impacting me. It stuck with me. I couldn't get it out of my head. There was something really critical or chaotic, right? That I want to share that one thing
Mhm.
because what also tends to happen, negativity is very reinforcing because it's powerful. right? Anger
Right.
is reinforcing because it's powerful. So is sadness. So, all of these really negatively valenced emotions, we feel something. So it's like, oh wow, this is strong. I have to share this. But we also have a tendency, I feel like, to generalize. Okay, well, I need to tell you about every single part of what sucked. And a lot of it's going to be the same thing that sucks every single day. But if
Mhm.
you have the ability to kind of accept that maybe I'm not in the happiest place in my job right now, right? Everything feels monotonous, it feels heavy. But when something really sticks out to me, that's the one thing I can pick out and seek support for so that
Right.
it doesn't become this dark hole that you just can't get out of.
Right. I like what you said, and I also think it's important to know, how am I gonna say this? Maybe what interaction you need. Like if I'm instead of being like I think people bitch about things because which
Mhm.
I'm not gonna lie, we all love a good bitch session,
Amen.
okay? Like I love to call you or something and be like, I gotta bitch about this one more time, okay?
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
we do it.
We beat a
It's
dead horse. We
normal
love
and we're
it.
human and all of us fall into that, right? It's
Yeah.
just like looking at the pattern of how it's impacting you too,
Yeah.
of how do you know, like, what you're feeling and, like, what might cause it relief? Because
Sure.
if I get home, right, if we're using that stereotypic example that we're using, and I'm like, "Yeah, work was shitty," I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of time people aren't aware with, well, what's gonna be a good, like, interaction? Like,
Yeah.
we just assume, like, let me just bitch about it instead of, wonder what would help me feel better or lighter now that I'm home. Like,
Right.
"Babe, my day was shitty, like, can we just lay on the couch and can I just sit next to
Mhm.
you and, like, can we just cuddle and watch a movie? Because like, maybe
Yep.
that's what I need, but I think we get stuck into this, like, intellectual rumination and it's too much
Sure.
in your head and, like, I just need a vent about everything. Do you really need a vent?
Right.
Or are you just programmed to be like, "Oh, if I just bitch and vent, it's supposed to make me feel better."
Right.
Sometimes, but I don't think that's all the time
Sometimes.
necessarily. Because of course, like, when I think about ruminations, right? When we talk about ruminations, it's like, how do you break a rumination? You're trying to be like, "How can I get more in my body and pay attention to it?"
Yeah.
And then be like, "How can I relax and get some relief from the day instead
Yeah.
of working myself back up and reliving and staying in it the rest of the evening?"
Yeah. Yeah. And I like what you said about thinking what it is that you need because we talk about this and we've talked about this in previous episodes too. Asking for the type of support that you need. If you want to go home and bitch and you can be super clear with your partner, your friend, whoever it is that you're talking to, like, I just need to get this off my chest, right? They are prepared to support you in that way of just listening. But if you're going to come home and unload on someone and they're kind of confused about, well, you seem really agitated. Like, do you want some advice? And you're like, no, I just wanted you to listen. Now you're mad and you didn't get the support that you were looking for. So I think that is really helpful and important to be like, okay, I honestly just, and we do this with each other too, right? Like, this is the beauty of a voice message because there's also, I can get it off my chest. I can share it with you. And when you have a minute, you can respond to me. This is such a great tool. Please use it. If you're not a
Everybody send a
journaler,
good voice note. I
we
love
love it.
hearing a bitch through a voice note too, because then
We
I
love
can
it.
I can, like, boundary it, like, am I ready for it? I can laugh
Good.
about it maybe, and then
Hmm.
we can move forward, or we can
Right.
keep going. It
Yeah,
depends.
either. There's no girlhood is getting a 7-minute long voice note from your bestie,
Yes.
truly. But, just like there's value in that, I think part of the reason that at least you and I do that is because we understand that you may not respond right away, or you might be like, "Hey, that's kinda long. I didn't have time to listen to it. I'm running into a meeting. I'll listen after." Right? And I still feel good because I got it off my chest.
Right.
But we have an understanding. So I think it's important to also know who your audience is, right? I'm not going to just unload the same things that I would share with you with a different friend because I
Yeah.
know that that's not the type of support, that's not the audience, that's not the person that I want support from either. So, again, I think there's a lot that goes into it and there is inner work and being like, well, people say I'm just a black cloud, like I'm negative all the time. Well, why?
Are you?
Are you?
Yeah.
Do you feel that way about yourself? Um, are
I
people
guess
always
when you say
Yeah.
that, it makes me be like, I'm in real time doing this, so sorry, guys. I'm like, I wonder what makes our dynamic. Because when you said that, me and you will bitch about some of the similar, like, the same things, right? We're like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I'm still gonna bitch about this thing that's still going on." But I'm like, I
Mhm.
wonder what makes it feel, like, lighter? is I
Mhm.
don't this is my perspective, I'm curious to see what you think about our dynamic because it might just help
Yeah.
people understand, like, it's not like you don't text me throughout the day, like, "Here's something that happened again," right? And
Mhm.
we're like,
Right.
"Ha, ha, ha," but I also think it's not always negative and so serious, we're also,
Right.
like, having a demeanor where sometimes it's funny, and then we're
Mhm.
goofing off about it, and then sometimes it is serious where I'm
Yeah.
like, "Are you good? Like, this
Yeah.
sucks,"
Mhm.
vice versa, but it's
Yeah.
not always like I'm like, "Oh my god, Gabby texts me and is bitching again." It's just like we have
Right.
like a cute moment, a funny
Mhm.
moment, we change the topic. It's
Yeah.
not like this cloud where it's like,
No.
this person's negative energy is sucking my
Right.
soul.
Yeah. Right.
So like
And
I guess, yeah, that's how I would deem it because 'cause I'm trying
Mhm.
to think of how to help people realize, like,
Yeah.
what is the difference between, like, I do kind of bitch to my friend about this every other day, but
Right.
is it consistent and that's all you guys talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I think using us as an example, what granted we've been friends for a very long time, but I think what we're able to do and what keeps it healthy is like, hey, if you don't have space for this right now, like that's cool. Or we will check in with each other about other things. We have a very flexible kind of relationship when it comes to like we talk about random things all day long, but then
Right.
we also talk business, but then we also voice note each other. So I think that that's helpful to kind of know that I can reach out to you and you can reach out to me, but we'll check in with
Yeah.
each other like, "Hey, make a joke out of it," like you said, right?
Yeah.
And we can totally set that boundary. Like, actually, like, I'm spiraling. We've sent each other crying messages before, right?
We definitely have.
Screaming, upset, just excited, kind of laughing at things that are very unserious. But I do think it's important to communicate with the person that you're always relying on and just kind of check in with them. Like, I'm really sorry that I keep bringing this up. Right. And we've done that
Yeah.
to each other. Like, it's just something that's very present in my life. And I need you to be there for me
Yeah.
for this. Right. Which is important too. If your
Yeah.
job, for example, is your time suck or you're parenting or, you're going through a life transition, you're depending on your partner to get you through that. That's something to have a conversation to be like, I know I talk about this a lot,
Yeah.
but this is just like where my heart is struggling right now. And I don't really know what to do. So I
Yeah.
feel like I put it on you. And that takes a little introspection too,
Yeah.
where if someone tells you, like, we've all had that friend, right? Where their name comes up on our phone, it's like, I don't have space for that. Like, I don't wanna be on the phone for an hour and a half just listening to them, and I
Yeah.
love them, but I can't do it. We all have had that moment, and I think that's a great point to just be like, "Hey, um, sorry I missed your call. What's going on?" "Oh, nothing, it's just the same stuff going on." "Okay, well, can we talk about it tomorrow? Like, I've just had a long day." Right?
Right.
We've all had that, but I do think it's important also to recognize, like, why. What is it about that that's draining or negative or taxing?
Yeah, well, I think that's why the topic is so hard for people to be like,
Mhm.
"Am I negative? Am I spiraling?" Well, then I'm trying to be vulnerable, but you're telling me not to be negative. Like, but I
Mm,
also like that's why I always say there's such a difference between negative
mhm.
mindset versus emotional. Because I don't feel exhausted when you tell me something that's going on. You're like, "Oh, the girls did X and Y, and I'm just frustrated." That doesn't feel heavy, right? I'm just like,
Yeah.
I get that. I'd be frustrated. But if it was like, and my life sucks and nothing's ever gonna change and this is
Right.
gonna be my life forever, like that
Mm.
victimy woe is me vibe starts to come in
Yeah.
and that starts feeling heavy.
Right.
Because it's like, if that's how it is every day it's not, "Hey, Gabby's gonna be like, yep, girls are being rough again." Like, I'm like, "Yeah, they're in that phase." Right? That's
Mhm.
fine. But when you're
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, and my life just sucks,
Yeah, right.
and the girls are gonna be like this for the next 8 years, and my life's gonna be misery," then I'm kinda like,
Yeah, right, and
"Alright,
if
alright,
that yeah,
what do you want from me, girl?" Like, at that
exactly.
point, I think that's when the other person starts, like, being like, "Oh, I
I
no,
can't.
I don't
Yeah,
know what else to do with it." So,
right,
emotional is that first part where it's like, "No, I get you. I can empathize and understand you. We can move
right.
forward." It doesn't feel exhausting, but it
No.
is that mindset of, like, the woe is me victim stuff that I think really and the energy around it that really gets to people.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's exhausting to, in a therapeutic kind of sense, when you have someone who is very resistant to the fact that we all have agency and we all have a role in the distress in our life, right? It's what we
Yeah.
allow, it's what we put boundaries up. That's why boundaries are important. If someone or something is taxing and it's making you unable to see the happy side of your life, there's things that you have to do to ameliorate that somewhat. You know, a friend is, I have two clients right now that are really struggling to set limits with friends because the friends are not healthy. They're kind of driving this really toxic relationship, or they do things that are not wholesome and healthy. And part of that is saying, like, yeah, but I still hang out with them. And then I beat myself up because I did things that I didn't want to do. Okay, now take a step back. It's good that you recognize that maybe this person is difficult for you to be around, but you're perpetuating something that's exhausting for you, right? Like, what's that intervention point? And it's not to put blame on anybody, but it's to say you can either fall into this victim mentality where you're negative and you're spiraling, or you can say, hey, I do have autonomy. I have choices. What can I do with that? How can I make this better for myself? You know, where can I say, okay, well, some things are just what they are.
Right.
They suck.
Right, and that's that acceptance piece, like, even in that example we said at the beginning, like, which I think is a lot of people, like, a lot of people, especially old school
Yeah.
generation too, like, yeah, you work a hard job, it's exhausting, you're never gonna be like, "I love going to work." It's
Yeah.
like, "Well, how do I work with the situation then?
Right.
How can I
Hmm.
look at, like, small little wins? How can I wake up and enjoy some little things throughout the day? How can I
Yeah.
switch that so I don't come home like, yeah, everything about my day sucks?
Right.
Because it's that kinda energy that's, like, exhausting the people around you, but it's also unhealthy for you to be like,
Sure.
everything sucks. It's like, well, yeah, work's work, it pays the bills, and
Hmm.
it was exhausting. But you know what I really liked today? I drank this really good coffee when I was going into my meeting, and it's like,
Right.
that's cute, like, that was a cool part of your day, but
Yeah.
that's what we teach people, right? Like, how do you
Right.
work with your situation so it doesn't work against you?
Hmm.
If you're working against yourself and having a negative mindset in the situation and not like accepting the emotions that come with it, I think just people get into sticky territory and just
Yeah.
it's detrimental to themselves. So,
Yeah. Well, I do think too that there's like this very big push towards this positivity swing, which is very hard when you're stuck in a negative mindset and you're stuck in that black cloud mentality. It's not really realistic to tell someone, okay, well, just flip it to the other side. You know, I think there's a misconception about what happens in therapy. And a lot of people are surprised when you're like, just pick one thing, start there, make it a habit, you know, see
right.
how that feels. What is your body telling you? What feels better? What feels different? Right. And then you can sort of let that spread to other things. But if you're like, I hate my job, you're not going to try to convince yourself that you love your job. You
Right. I
know,
think
you're,
that's the thing that pisses me off, which what you
yeah.
said like at the beginning, like
Hmm.
I get positive psychology, right? Like we're like,
Yeah.
Let's positive mindset, blah, blah, blah. But
Hmm.
it's just unrealistic for a lot of situations. Like I
Yeah.
can't flip the switch. You cannot flip a
Hmm.
switch and you can't turn emotions off.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
You can't be like, wow, I should just be grateful for my job and everything, I'm just gonna start loving it. Like that's not like that's
No.
fake. If you do that, that's just so fake. Like
Hmm. Right.
you're gonna convince yourself or anybody else. It
Yeah.
is like how can I just accept it? And how can I like that's the emotional part. How can I feel my emotions and accept my emotions around
Hmm.
it? And
Right.
I don't have to be positive and cheery about it, which people are
Yeah.
like, just be positive. If I have to ever hear a sentence like that every day, I would just poke my eyeballs out.
Yeah. Right.
Like, Alessia, what do you mean? Just think positive, be positive. But I'm
Yeah.
upset. Like I'm
Yeah.
upset.
Right.
So like
Right.
allow me to be upset, work through it, accept it,
Hmm.
not love it, but then I'll maneuver it. But if you're just telling
Yeah.
somebody stop being negative, just think positive, like our
Hmm.
culture does that to people. And I think that's like you see people with that mindset. Like, I know I should think positive, but like I tell people I do, but internally I'm like, okay.
See, and I think there's a very big difference. Again, it's about parsing words. There's a very big difference between being realistic and being positive, right? You can say, like, for example, you have a really difficult, like, legal situation, right? You can be optimistic and maybe realistic that things are going to go great, but you can still have fears that there are things that are going to pop up. Right? That doesn't mean that when you're worried, just you be positive, it's going to turn out great, right? You can be optimistic. What that means is I have hope that it's not going to go the way that I'm worried about. But it doesn't mean I'm convincing myself that this is not going to happen. That's not a possibility because now we're generating new issues for ourselves, right? I'm worried, but I'm telling my body, ignore that. That doesn't have meaning. That's irrelevant. And what we're creating is more issues. Okay, well, now I don't trust my body. My body's agitated. I feel like I'm in survival mode all the time. Oh, I'm going to ignore that. There's nothing wrong, right? So now we're like, okay, well, now you don't trust your body. This is not awesome. That's important. We got to do that, but you're sort of convincing yourself, oh, well, I don't really believe it, but here we go. I'm going to mantra myself to death. It's dangerous territory.
Of a feeling.
Mhm. Yeah.
Which no, if you know how emotions work, if you try to talk yourself out of an emotion, it doesn't work.
No.
That's literally like, all right, that's anxiety brain, right? When you're like,
Mhm.
okay, I shouldn't be feeling like this. You shouldn't be feeling like this. And but bitch, you're feeling like this, but you
Right.
are. Like,
Yeah.
why are we feeling like this? What can we do to work with it? How do I
Mhm.
just accept it? But there's so many times. That's why I like get so sad when I've heard people like either had a bad experience in therapy or like, family history where it's like,
Mhm.
well, I was just told like, I just need to think positive about stuff. And I just will
Right.
always hate that sentence as much as I
Yeah.
can get like what you said. I love the way you said it. It is like I want to be hopeful. And
Mhm.
the reality is also having hope is being like I also don't know the outcome. So how do I just stay present enough with myself to feel my feelings? Know I have
Sure.
some worry there, know that I can also allow myself some hope, and then know that I'll trust that I can deal with it when it comes.
Yeah.
But not an easy thing for people to maneuver. And it's hard to understand when there's so many different verbiages around like negative and emotional language and the mindset of things and how do you
Right.
be vulnerable and how do you be open to somebody? How do you be honest and tell them how you're feeling without being negative? And like I think that's where people start questioning, like, oh, what am I supposed to be communicating then?
Right.
So hopefully
Yeah,
this for some people.
yeah, I mean, I think so. I encourage everyone to really just be present with what you are feeling, and when it feels kind of dark and dreary, parse
Yeah.
out like where that's coming from because
Yep.
that's important. These
Yeah.
feelings are stemming from something that you've learned very often. Why is this taking up space?
Yeah.
But you have to look inside first before you
Look
can
out.
put it out for someone.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, squad. Well, until next time, we appreciate you guys for being here and we hope this helped some of you who are confused about it.
And I guess we will see you on the pod and with some of our wonderful guests coming up. So stay tuned for all of those episodes.
Stay tuned.
We'll see you later. Love you guys.